What's happening? What's happening? Welcome back. Here I am pounding again on the table. Well, welcome back to the channel, and thank you for clicking on this video. I hope that you are subscribed to the channel, and if you're not, go ahead and subscribe so that you can receive more videos and just be a part of what the Lord is doing in my life and maybe through me. But as you are aware, if you've already been clicking on some of my videos, I've been going through a systematic theology, summary of Christian doctrine by Louis Berkhoff, and that's what we've been going through. But I took a small hiatus, a small little break from that, so that we can maybe just get people acquainted with a little bit of my own story growing up and what led me to where I am now. And so I've already did a couple of stories about from my childhood to my teenage years, and now I want to perhaps maybe do this video from 18 around that time to about 27 years old. So that's kind of the goal that I'm shooting for. So I guess we'll begin by just a small recap of what I have already said. I was born and raised in New York. I grew up without a father, my real father. I had a stepdad who came in and filled the shoes of my original father at around 5 or 7 years old. And we moved to Puerto Rico, and then from Puerto Rico my stepdad ended up and my mom ended up breaking up, and so now I was fatherless and no father figure in my life, and it took a turn for the wrong, if you will. It went downhill because I didn't have a father figure. My mom couldn't control us, and I found myself doing in very bad neighborhoods, doing very bad stuff and dealing with very, very bad people. And so in light of that, I have gotten a phone call from my brother who was staying in Florida, and he bought us the plane ticket for me and my mom, and so that we can go, and my little sister as well, and so that we can come to Florida. And so we did that. We took advantage of that. We came over here to Florida, and I was about 17, 18, give or take, maybe about 18. And we had moved to Hollywood, Florida, down south, and then basically I stood there for some time, maybe about 6 months, in which time I had gotten my first job ever, which is so amazing. My first job ever was I began to fill out applications, and my brother was helping me. He even let me borrow his car that he had, and I had learned how to drive in Puerto Rico because a man that knew my mom very well taught me and my mom how to drive in Puerto Rico. And so since I already knew how to drive, I had come down to Florida with already knowing how to drive. So my brother had let me borrow his Bronco. I think it was a Bronco he had, or a rodeo or something like that. He had let me borrow his truck, and we had I had basically I went around Hollywood trying to fill out applications and look for work. Well, the first job that appeared and that called me was Winn-Dixie, believe it or not, right there on Dania Beach, in Dania. And so I ended up getting that job. I was super elated because it's my first job ever. Here I am in Florida, having escaped all the corruption in the past, and starting a new life, if you will. And I even though I was enveloping myself in the bad stuff in Puerto Rico, I still deep inside had a sense of wanting to succeed. Deep inside, I still had an ethical structure, if you will. Like, I knew that it was ethical and right and good to work and to labor and to to do what's right. I always kind of had that mentality, even though I was declining and going downhill in Puerto Rico. By having escaped that life and now being put in a position to be able to work finally. So I did that. I got my first job in Winn-Dixie and I began working there. And from Winn-Dixie, I used to walk to work. It was probably like a 4 or 5 mile walk to work, and I used to walk there back and forth. And so I had my own little money, and then not only that, but I also was able to establish my first little bank account. And not only my own first little bank account, but I also was able to establish, or not establish, but to actually rent out my own little efficiency, like a little tiny 1-bedroom. It didn't even have a 1-bedroom. It was just an efficiency. And I was living by myself in that little efficiency. I had my own little sink, my own little bathroom. I had my own little bank account. I had my own job, and I didn't have to have a vehicle because my job was literally right next door, because I had moved into that efficiency next to the Winn-Dixie. Well, that literally lasted close to about a year or so. I was about 18, 19, turning 19 in that area, 19-ish. And I had gotten a second job at Subway, at the restaurant Subway, making sandwiches. And the crazy thing about it is that, like, I was doing so well with work there. I was very prodigious in my work. I was very on point. I was one of the one that excelled at work. And so I was getting paid well there. And then, long story short, what happened was I had moved out of that efficiency and moved back in with my brother, just because of financial reasons and stuff. And I moved in back with my brother. And so what happened was a while, about, again, like when I was 19, around that area, and I don't get the dates perfectly right, but it's about that time, anytime between I was 19 or something like that, 19, and maybe even transitioning into 20. Okay, so what happened was there was this one girl one time that would come into the drive-thru, and we would close at 4 in the morning at that Subway. That Subway didn't close till 4 in the morning, and then the drive-thru was open from 1 o'clock in the morning till 4. And so that was my shift. I used to work night shifts mainly. So anyways, usually at around 1:30 in the morning or 2 in the morning, I would get this constant customer every now and then who would come in and through the drive-thru late at night. And it was a girl who had 2 daughters and who, usually used to come with another lady next to on her passenger side. And so I thought she was very beautiful, very, very pretty. And so, beautiful smile. And so I ended up kind of like, yo, this girl's, she's fine, and stuff like that. So I would talk to her or whatever, and she would flirt with me or whatever, and I would flirt back with her, And so it turns out that she would come every now and then. I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, or maybe less, but she would come and I would remember her vehicle. So it turned out that one day, I guess I asked her out or something, and I said, hey, maybe we can go do something. She said, yeah, So that's what ended up happening. So I met this girl, and so I ended up dating her. And so we were actually doing well. We were, I got to know her 2 daughters and stuff. And her 2 daughters at that time, I think, if I remember correctly, was 3 and 4, or 4 and 5, one of the 2. I don't remember correctly. But so we would go out and stuff. We would have fun. We would get to know each other and so on. And keep in mind, I wasn't a Christian, any of that stuff. I'm still living that kind of lifestyle as far as like my mentality. I didn't care anything about the things of the Lord or anything. So we're doing our own thing and stuff. And then she would come visit me in my apartment because I was living with my brother. She would come visit us there and hang out with me, and basically we would go out. We were basically boyfriend and girlfriend. Literally, we were boyfriend and girlfriend. And this happened for about 2 or 3 months, if I remember correctly. And then here's what happened. One day, it actually wasn't even a day. It was at nighttime. Some dude walks in the shop at Subway, and he's looking at me like all crazy. And I'm like, and then he's like, are you Danny? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, who's this guy? And it looks like we're about ready to scrap or something, because I'm not liking the way he's looking at me. So he's like, are you Danny? And I'm like, yeah. And he said, yo, yo, so what's up with you and my girlfriend? And I'm like, what? So apparently she was cheating on her husband, on her boyfriend, the father of her kids, with me, and I had no idea. I mean, I had zero ideas. And it turns out, watch this, it turns out that the lady that used to ride next to my girlfriend at that time was the aunt of her boyfriend, which is kind of like, this is your, you know, like your nephew, you know, is her boyfriend with the kids in the back, and you are allowing her to flirt with other dudes. It was weird stuff. So anyways, I basically responded back to the guy. I'm like, yo, like, I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? I thought she was single. What the heck is happening? So we're both sitting there confused. And we kind of knew our limits and our boundaries because, you know, I'm like, yo, I'm cool. You know what I'm saying? As long as you're cool. But I didn't know anything about this stuff. So he's like, oh, you know, he was pissed. He was like, oh, you know, and I said, bro, I said, she would come up here, flirt with me, and we went out several times and stuff. We were basically boyfriend and girlfriend. This has been happening for several months now. And so he was furious about that, needless to say. And I have no idea what happened when he got home with his girlfriend or whatever, with her. And they had arguments or whatever. And so it turned out that, of course, I got a text message, or at that time we were fond of the beeper, the beepers. So she would beep me and be like, yo, you know what I'm saying, like, sorry or whatever, you know. And then basically it broke up with me, basically, because obviously it's like she got a boyfriend and she kind of basically did me wrong and the dude wrong. So it turns out that I was still kind of in love with her. I was like, man, like I missed those times, you know, like, yeah, even though I've only known her several months, to me, I'm like, I grew to be close to her, you know. And so I was missing her. I was broken also, and I was hurt because of the fact that she had done that to me. And I'm like, how could she have lied to me like that? And so, you know, I think about several weeks passed where, you know, there would be no phone call, no nothing. Like, we actually cut it off, and I was super broken by that. And so I remember I would cry. I'd be like broken about it. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'll get a text message, or a beep or whatever, you know, miss you or thinking of you. And I'm like, here we go, you know. So she would kind of resurrect that again and kind of like not leave me alone to grieve, right? And so there's a sense in which, like, I would be like, oh, I miss you too. And then, like, one thing would lead to another. And then there we are going to see each other again. And then she finally is talking about, yeah, I left him and I dumped him and stuff, and I just want to be with you. And I'm like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, she wants to be with me, and that kind of mentality. So it turns out that for the sake of not going too long on with the video, it turns out that this actually happened with her jumping back and forth from me to him, maybe several times, maybe 2 or 3 times or whatever. Like, she would leave me and get convicted that she has to go back to him or whatever, and you know, and then the dude, you know, the father of the kids, would get you know, angry and want to start beef with me. Yo, who's this Danny guy or whatever, trying to take my girl or whatever. And so we would, every now and then, me and him would get into an argument, you know. Like, if I went to go pick her up, then he would be there or something like that. But the idea was that they were broken up or whatever, but still living together. So it's this weird story. But at the end of the day, like, it was like this jumping back and forth between me and him, and she was like not decided or whatever. And so we were literally fighting over her. And at that point, I'm like, you know, here's what ended up happening at one point. At one point, she had made a decision that she wanted to be with me. And she literally said, you know what, I'm done with this back and forth. I want to be with Danny, you know. So she ended up leaving this guy. And I forgot exactly where she went to live, or I have not, again, I forgot. But here is what happened. One day we were at the school, and it goes to show you how things happen in life. We were at the school, and we were picking up the kids from school, me and my girlfriend, right? And we were picking up the girls from school. And it turns out that it happens that it was like 2 or 3 o'clock, right, when the kids come out, and it so happens that the father of the kids, was also in the school that day. And so we sort of bumped into each other, as it were, right? And here's the crazy part. I had 2 pistols in my car. I had 2 guns in my car, in the glove compartment. And what ended up happening was, like, he saw me in the school picking up the girls with my girlfriend, and the girls were already in my car, right? The girls were already in my car, and I had come up to to 7, no, not 7, 3, 1, 2, 3. It happened about 4 or 5 times where we actually would get into this argument, like physical altercation, and then she would have to come in and step in and be like, oh, don't fight or whatever. And so we never really had an altercation, where it turns out that I had actually gone to the school. He was there, and so long story short, I basically had approached them, because at that point, this was my mentality. At that point, I had already squashed the beef with him, because in my mind, I already had the girl. You know what I'm saying? Like, she was already mine. So to me, there's no need for me to continue to have beef with this guy, because she was already mine. Like, I already had her. And so I think that he was still exercised by that. And so when he saw me in the school, I actually approached him. And literally, I went up to him and I said, hey, man, like, I just want you to know that I don't want any more problems, like, let's just squash the beef and stuff. And I was just trying to make peace with him, because, again, in my mind, I'm like, I'm already cool with it. I don't need to have any more beef with this guy. So he literally out of nowhere, I let my guard down, and he literally out of nowhere sucker punched me. And this is in front of the school, in front of a lot of kids, literally sucker punched me. And instinctively, and this is pure instinct, like, I think it's a cheap move that I did, but this, again, was pure instinct. I would have never done this, you know what I'm saying, had I not felt that I was at a disadvantage at that time. Because one of the things that people know is that if you get hit first, you're already at a disadvantage, because, like, again, that person took the first leg. So when he had hit me in my cheekbone, he had hit me in the face, he actually busted my eye out really, really good. And so instinctively, the first thing I did was, I got hit, and I looked, and I saw, again, instinctively, I saw on the floor a rock. It was pretty big. It was about the size of my fist. And like I said, instinctively, I was so angry, and the first thing I said in my mind was, I'm literally gonna run to get the guns right now. And as I was when I got hit, I looked down, and I was gonna literally go and get my guns to literally go crazy. I was gonna start shooting, right? And so when I looked down, I saw that rock, and the first instinct was to pick it up and throw it at him. And I had no earthly intention of actually hitting the guy. I didn't. I just wanted to throw it. You know what I'm saying? As what do you call it? Like a distracting or whatever, just in case he wanted to hit me a second time. So to kind of stop that, so that I can get enough time to go and get the gun. Well, what happened was that rock actually ended up hitting him in the head, and I threw it really hard, and so it actually hitting him in the back of the head. And this is in front of the school, in front of everybody. There's tons of kids, and next thing you know, as I'm running towards the car, right, all I see and hear are the girls in the car crying and screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy!" Because I'm like, what just happened? And it turns out that when I looked back, because I was running towards the car to get the gun, and when I looked back, he was already literally writhing on the floor, and tons of blood everywhere. And I had basically, I think he had gotten 21 stitches in the back of his head. Crazy stuff. So they called the cops. The cops came, they put me in handcuffs, they put me in the back of the police car, and they were taking me to the jail. And I had told the cop, I said, listen, I'm hurt, you know what I'm saying? I need to go to the hospital, my eye hurts, you know what I'm saying? And so he ended up taking me to the hospital that night, and it turns out that the dude that I hit with the rock actually went to the hospital, obviously, as well. And as he was getting stitched up, it turns out that my brother, watch this is crazy, my brother had found out about the incident, and my brother went straight to the hospital, where me and the guy that got it, and this, we'll call this guy X, okay? It turns out that X was there, right, obviously getting treated for his injuries, and I'm getting treated for my injuries. And it turns out that my brother met with his brother in the parking lot. And it turns out that my brother went over there and went buck wild on his brother and started beating the crap out of his brother. Well, here's the thing. That was kind of a huge mistake that my brother did, because my brother, keep in mind, back in the videos that I had talked about, my brother's crazy. Like, he's real crazy, and he went buck wild on X's brother. And again, that was a bad move, because now X's brother went to all his boys to try to get back at my brother and me, And so here's what happened. That night, They released me because apparently the ex didn't want to press charges on me, so they released me, and I went home. So as I went home and stuff like that, X had told his brother, watch this, X had told his brother, he said, yo, like, don't pursue this, you know what I'm saying, leave it alone, let it go, but X's brother didn't want to leave it alone. So he ended up like trying to start beef that night. So here's what happened. That very night, my girlfriend, right, has said to me, she said, yo, they're gonna come back. They're gonna come back tonight, and I don't want to get too deep into this just because it's already been 20 minutes into this. But here's what ended up happening. They did come that night. There must have been 2 carfuls of guys with baseball bats, knives, and all of this crap to try to basically go crazy on us. But what happened was, one of the guys, one of the persons threw a rock this big into the actual glass and broke the glass, and it turns out that it almost hit one of X's daughters, which is crazy because I'm like, really? Like, they're trying to retaliate, but at the same time, they almost just banged your daughter and sent her to the hospital. Crazy stuff. So, because I was looking for my guns everywhere. I was telling my girlfriend, I'm like, yo, where's the gun? Where's the gun? And she basically, this is what's crazy. It goes to show you how things work. She ended up pawning. That night, they pawned both of my guns because they had a feeling that this was going to happen and they didn't want us to use the guns. So they had pawned the guns, and so I'm just like, yo, like, I need the guns. They're about to kill us and stuff like that. So anyways, we didn't have the guns. So what they ended up doing was, we locked the doors on the inside. What they ended up doing was, the guys, they ended up smashing my entire vehicle. They broke all my windows. They basically crushed my whole entire vehicle. And then they ended up getting back in the vehicle and dipped. And then what ended up happening was, like, it started going crazy from there, where, they were still having beef with my brother and stuff like that. And then at one point they tried to swing on my brother. My brother ran back home, grabbed a pistol and started shooting. It's crazy stuff like that. So I finally said to myself, and I said to my girlfriend, I said, listen, like, I'm done with the whole beef thing. I don't want any more trouble. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead. And then she said this. She said, well, my dad lives in Port St. Lucie. Let's move there. So that's exactly how we ended up from Hollywood to Port St. Lucie, because her father was living here. And so we did that. I moved from Port St. Lucie, from Hollywood, and ended up moving to Port St. Lucie, which is where I am now, currently. Well, when we moved to Port St. Lucie, we moved in with her parents. That lasted about a year. We moved in with her parents for a year, and I got a good job working at Chili's, and so now we begin a new life, right? Away from problems and all that stuff. And now it's me and my girlfriend with the kids and stuff. And then it wasn't until about a year or so that I actually was able to get enough money to move out of that place with her parents and get our own apartment. And so we did that. We got our own apartment, and now we're basically living the boyfriend and girlfriend / kids / family / thing together. And so that's how I moved out of the hood in Puerto Rico to landed in United States. And from United States, I ended up meeting this girl. And with all the beef that happened down there, we ended up moving further north to Port St. Lucie, in which that's where we stayed. And I was working. I had my own, apartment, and I had my girlfriend and the kids and stuff. And so we had a family life, right? The father of the kids, ex, right? He would come every so often to pick up the girls and take them with him or whatever, but that's all that was. He was just the father of the girls, right? And no further beef between me and him. That kind of got squashed and stuff, and so it was going well. Well, this is where it gets, at least for me, as what ended up happening was that, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but just to say this, that at 20 years old, this happened when I was like 19 to 20, when I met her. And then when I moved to Port St. Lucie, I was 20, 21 or whatever, 22. And, did a whole year with her parents and stuff. And then I had a son. My son was born. I think I was 22 years old, I think. And my son was born. And, there it is. A family life, 3 kids, taking them to school, doing that whole thing. And it turns out that in that time, she ended up like, this is the crazy part, she ended up like cheating on me like several times. She did it like probably at least 2 or 3 times that I can remember. And like, you know, it was always, our relationship was always one of fluctuation, right? I was always faithful to her, but she was not so with me. And so the relationship between me and her was one of, you know, where she, you know, she would go find somebody else and basically cheat on me with the dude. And then it was always the same pattern, which was this. And this is why I kind of understand relationship, because I went through all this stuff, and I get the pain behind it. You know, it's like she cheats on me, you know, it was always the same pattern. You know what I'm saying? Like, she cheats on me, I kind of like let me tell you one of the first ways. And actually, let me tell you the first way that it happened. Not only the first way with her ex, right, when she lied to me and him, right, but even afterwards, when we were living with her parents. Here's what happened one day. I had this suspicion, like I think she's acting weird. You know what I'm saying? For an entire week or two, she was acting weird and hanging a lot with her brother, because her brother was living over here as well in Port St. Lucie. And so she was hanging a lot with him, and she was kind of basically ignoring me, and so she was acting weird, and I kind of sensed it. So one day she went out to the store, and I had gotten on the computer, and I went on my email, which at that time was America Online, right, AOL. And so I checked my email, and it turns out that I was on her profile instead. She had just gotten off the computer but forgot to sign off. So when I clicked on the email, I was like, oh snap, I'm actually on her email. You know what I'm saying? Not on mine. And so surely enough, I found the message on the email saying something about, oh, I can't wait to see you, or I miss you, and this and that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who the heck is she seeing? And I was like, no wonder why I've been feeling kind of off, you know? So here's what happened. I ended up really quick, because I knew she was on her way back. I actually printed it. I hit the print, and I printed the actual message. And I kept it with me for about a week. Watch this. I kept it for about a week. And it turns out that she comes in, you know what I'm saying? She's acting like nothing, you know? And in my mind, I'm like, wow. For an entire week, I was able to see right through all of the hypocrisy. You know, how she would look at me, the things she would say to me, oh, I miss you, or oh, I love you, and stuff like that. And I'm looking at her, and I'm like, wow, you have no idea that I know exactly what you're doing, you know? And so I waited an entire week, and it was pure stress, depression, anxiety, pain, frustration, you know, because I wanted more evidence. You know, I didn't want to just confront her with the one piece of paper, but I wanted more. And so I gave her the benefit of the doubt. So it turns out that one of the weekends came along, which is the next week, and surely enough, here I am. I'm like, watch, she's going to go see him. Watch, she's going to act like she's going somewhere else, but she's actually going to go see him. And surely enough, she comes up to me and she says, yeah, you know, I'm bored and stuff like that. I'm going to go to West Palm Beach. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I'm going to go hang out with my brother and just go to West Palm Beach and have fun. Well, it turns out that this guy was from West Palm Beach. And I'm like, wow, she's going to go see the dude. And she's acting like she's going to go with her brother, which in turn he was going to go. She was going to go with him. But he was in on it. Like, he knew about it. And I'm like, this is so shady. So surely enough, she's like, yeah, and then I'm going to go down there. And I'm like, I was crushed. And I'm like, wow, she's literally going to go right now and cheat on me. So I know it had already happened before, which is she had already seen the guy. And so what ended up happening was, like, she comes up and she's in the bathroom. I remember this. She's in the bathroom. She's getting herself all pretty. She's doing her hair. She's fixing her bangs. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, wow, she's getting pretty to go see somebody else. And she has no idea that I know. So here's what I did. I told her, I said, hey, so you're going to West Palm? She's like, yeah. And I said, that's cool, you know. And I waited until the end, until she was ready to leave with her brother. And then I said this. I said, you know what? I'm bored too. Do you mind if I come with you? Hey, you had to see her face. She was like, and her face just dropped. She was like, no. She's like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, I said, I'm bored. I don't want to stay here. Do you mind if I join you guys? She didn't know that I know. And so finally, this is exactly what happened. She faked it. And she was like, oh, well, this and that. She went back into the room. I forgot what she did. But anyway, she came back out and she was like, yeah, you know what? I changed my mind. I don't want to go to West Palm Beach after all. And I'm like, wow, how shady. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is so super shady. And so, but I had already knew about it, obviously, because I had the evidence. I already had the paper, right? And surely enough, I was like, okay, that confirmed it, you know? And so finally, I don't know if it was the next day or that very same night, I told her, hey, come with me. I need to talk to you. And I got her in my vehicle, and I drove her to the gas station, and I put the car in park at nighttime. And I literally looked at her, and I said to her, I said, hey, so what's up? She was like, what do you mean? I said, what's up? Tell me what's going on. What's up with you, and me? And she was like, well, what do you, and she faked it the whole time. She totally faked it. She was like, well, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And I'm like, I said, listen, I'm not stupid. You know what I'm saying? What's going on? And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, I said, listen, I know what's going on. I said, you're seeing somebody else? And she literally denied it till the cows come home. She was like, oh no, what are you talking about? I'm not seeing anybody. And I said, listen, you're seeing somebody. I know you are. And then she denied it all the way. She denied it the whole time. For at least half an hour, she sat there denying it and denying it and denying it. And then finally I said, okay. I pulled out the paper and I gave it to her. I said, read that. And she collapsed. She's like, oh, sitting there crying and stuff like that. And I'm sorry and this. And I'm like, why did you lie to me? You know what I'm saying? Why didn't you just come forward and say it? You know what I'm saying? The whole time you were going to West Palm Beach to go see this dude. And you were cheating on me. You're lying to, And so she basically, oh, I'm sorry. She cried about it and this and that. And so, again, that was the pattern of her cheating on me, crying over it. And then I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to lose her. You know what I'm saying? Because I was a wussy like that. And it's like, okay, well, I ended up forgiving her. And taking her back or whatever like that. And then so like, we would start all over again, if you will. And then a year or two would pass by, and then she would do it again with some other guy, And I'm not trying to paint her like to be this like whore or anything like that. But I'm not trying to say she did it every so often, I'm saying, like every single, but she did do it at least 2 times. And then finally, the straw that broke the camel's back was in around 2007. This was when I was 27, and this was about 2004, at the middle of 2004. And I remember this correctly because this is where my life transitioned ridiculously. Like my whole life completely changed because of this. Again, I had my son and stuff like that. My son at that point was already 5 years old. Yeah, 5, because I was 27. Yeah. So here's what happened. I'm having a brain fart. Here's what happened. So I had a sense of something is going wrong again. Something is off. She's being cold with me, and I kind of felt that. I felt the weight of that. And I'm like, man, I feel like she's distant from me. I know something is going on. Immediately, it was almost like instinct. It was pure instinct. Like I had no proof, like nothing. I have zero proof that she's doing something to me. And it's crazy because, just so you guys know, I'll tell one more short story about how I also caught her another time in the same exact way. Well, shortly enough, my cousin was in town. Like, he was living with me from Puerto Rico. And so that time, it was me, my brother, my girlfriend, all of the kids, my brother's girlfriend, and my cousin. We were all, and my brother's girlfriend's son was living in there, who was at that time like 19 or 18 or whatever. The house was packed with people. We were all living together. And I remember this. I remember when my cousin was there from Puerto Rico, he was, trying to make a life for himself over here in Florida. Well, it turns out that one day I had another suspicion, and this was before I was 27, right? I'm just backtracking a little bit so you guys know. And so I had another suspicion that she was cheating on me. I'm like, yo, I feel like she's off. Something is off. And surely enough, I looked into her emails and stuff like that. I looked into her stuff, and I found out a conversation that she was having with some guy. And surely enough, I'm like, watch this. I'm sitting there reading it with my cousin, and I'm like, yo, this is so shady. She's cheating on me again. And my cousin is like, wow, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, yo, and I was broken. I was hurt. I was like, man, when is she going to stop? So it was just part of like, this is what she did. You know what I'm saying? She was just unfaithful. It's just the way it is, So anyways, it turns out that I actually did the same exact thing. I printed out the whole thing. It was like 2 or 3 sheets worth of conversation that she was having with some guy. And surely enough, I kept it for over a week. Again, the same exact scenario. I kept it for over a week. And you know what I did this time? Watch this. That night, I had gathered, because I had sufficient evidence, I had gathered every single person. I gathered my brother. I said, I need all of you guys to come over to the living room right now. And no one had a clue what I was going to do, except for my cousin who knew. I said, I need everybody to come to the living room. So me, my brother, his girlfriend, her son, my cousin, my girlfriend, and except for the kids obviously weren't in there. But all of us were there in the living room. And you know what I did? Everybody was looking at me and we're all quiet and they're like, what's up? And then I looked at my girlfriend and I said just like this. I said, hey, do you need to tell me anything? I confronted her in front of everybody. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, I'm just asking you, is there anything you need to confess to me? And she flipped out. Oh, what do you mean? Why are you always accusing me? And this and that, and I haven't done anything. And I said, listen, I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to give you the opportunity to be truthful in front of everybody. Is there anything I need to know? Oh, no, there's nothing you need to know. I haven't been doing anything. I pulled out the papers. Before I even handed it to her, she ran straight to the bathroom, locked the door, and shut herself in. And I'm like, wow, And everybody was like, wow, and I'm like, I'm telling you, she did it again. There it is. Everybody was reading in the proof of it. And I'm like, yo, man. And I was crushed again, So that was another scene that happened where she was chatting with some other guy or whatever. So all that to say that when you fast forward now, I'm 27 years old, I was feeling that same thing. I'm like, yo, something is off. Something is wrong. She's distant, like she's cold. So I'm like, yo, I know she's seeing somebody. I just didn't know who. And I couldn't pinpoint it. But listen, I knew the feeling. And I was like, yo, it's starting all over again. And let me say this. This is why I wanted to share this. There is a particular pain that comes from that, from betrayal, from being hurt, right? There's almost a sense in which you kind of condition yourself to it and you prepare yourself for it so that if it happens again, you can smell it a mile away. And so that's exactly what was happening. I was like, yo, like I smell pain. I really do. It's coming. And I remember this. One time, it's the same exact thing. She was with her brother and she was basically saying something like, oh, like I'm not feeling well. And this is, watch this. This is a week or two, actually maybe more, like about 2 or 3 weeks before, 2 or 3 weeks before I was feeling that, right? I was like, yo, I feel like she's cheating on me. But I didn't have any evidence. So what I did was I waited it out. And every single day in pain, in darkness. And I'm like, yo, like I'm hurting big time. And so surely enough, one night it came to fruition. Here's what happened. She comes up to me. She comes late from work. She was working at a clothing store, and she would come home late sometimes because she would close the store. And she'd come home at 10:30 or 11 o'clock at nighttime or whatever. And so one day she come home late, and her brother was in the house or something like that. And this is exactly what she said. She looked at me and she's like, oh, and I knew something was off that night. She said, oh, I'm not feeling well and this and that, and my head hurts, my stomach or something. I don't remember what it was, but she was not feeling well. And so she told me, she was like, I'm just going to have my brother take me to the hospital. That was the flag. I'm like, whoa. Why didn't she ask me to take her to the hospital? Why her brother? So surely enough, all the flags went up. And I'm like, there it is. My heart sank. I went right back into darkness. And I'm like, yo, there it is. She's cheating on me. So surely enough, you know what I said to her? I said, you know what? I allowed her to get up. Watch this. I allowed her to get up to change her clothes, right? And to get ready to walk out the door with her brother for the hospital. And you know what I did? I interjected. And I said, wait a minute. Wait. I'll take her to the hospital. And she was like, oh, no, you don't have to take me to the hospital. My brother can do it. And I'm like, no. I'll do it. I'll take her to the hospital. And surely enough, when I was driving her to the hospital, she was like very, very distant from me and very, very quiet and very, very cold. And you know what I did? As I was driving to the hospital, I remember this. As I was driving to the hospital, I simply could not contain it. I didn't have any evidence, but I knew for sure she was cheating on me. I knew it. And I just broke down. I broke down in tears in front of her. And she was perplexed because she's like, well, what's wrong? And I told her, I said, what the heck, I've done everything I can, for you. And I've shown you faithfulness. And I know you're cheating on me. I know you have someone else. And surely enough, she threw her hands up and she's like, oh, there we go again. You're accusing me. And what have I done wrong? And what's the evidence? What am I doing? And I didn't have evidence at that time. So I said to her, I said, listen, I know you're cheating on me. I know this. I can feel it. You know what I'm saying? And she was like, oh, no, it's just you, I'm not doing anything wrong. And she was like basically defending herself. So, but I cried that night because I was driving her to the hospital and I was literally crying. And I'm like, man, like, I don't have any evidence, but I know she's doing something, So surely enough, this is what happened. We go to the hospital. We go inside. She checks in, right? And she's waiting for the doctor. Well, it turns out, watch this. It turns out that she had left the phone with me. I don't know if she left it in the car or if she left it by the seat or whatever. I had her phone in my hand. And listen, at that point, there was no locks on phones or anything like that, so you can just open up the phone and see anything that comes up. Well, I happened to have her phone in my pocket. Like, I had it in my pocket. I don't know why. She gave it to me or she left it in the vehicle. So I'm minding my own business. I'm in the hospital waiting for her. They call her in. And so she's inside, she's getting checked or whatever like that. And so surely enough, I'm waiting. And I am crushed. I am super crushed. Crying. And then I'm like, you know what? I just wish I had proof. And then surely enough, I hear a vibration on my side. And I'm like, uh-oh, so the phone's going off. And I pick it up. I open it. Surely enough, there it is. It was a text message from her boss. From one of the guys that was working with her I'm like, oh my goodness. And then surely enough, the text message says something like this. What's wrong, babe? Are you okay? Talk to me or whatever. I miss you, let me know how's it going or whatever. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like this? Oh my goodness. And then surely enough, I was like, there it is. There's the proof. And then, but I still didn't know who it was. So what I did was I literally went straight into the hospital. I did not pass go. I did not collect $200. I went straight into the hospital. I went straight into her room, and I confronted her right then and there. And I was like, "Yo, what's up?" I said, "Who the heck?" Because I think there was a name on it or something like that. I said, "Who the heck is this?" And she's like, and she broke down, and she's like, "Oh, And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I basically, I don't remember if I threw the phone at her or I slammed it on the floor or whatever, but I basically was like, you know what? I said, find your, I started cursing, obviously. I was like, find your way home and stuff like that. And I'm out of here. And surely enough, I threw the phone at her. And I ended up getting in my vehicle and I left her stranded in the hospital. I said, you find your own ride back home. And I ended up leaving. And so I remember this. When I got back on the vehicle, I mean, you want to talk about pure darkness, pure cold, pure, like just pure sadness. I was crushed. I was like, I was hurt. I felt like backstabbed, and I'm like, man, when is she gonna stop this? So finally, I decided, you know what, like I'm done. I can't keep doing this. So I remember driving back home crushed, and so I had made up my mind that I was going to, finalize it. But here's what happened. I skipped the part that was crucial, which is part of my testimony. You remember how I said earlier that right before I had proof that she was doing something, I had already had a feeling? Well, keep in mind, I already had a feeling. I knew something was going wrong. And so, as a result of having known that something was going wrong, right, I had this overwhelming, and I mean overwhelming sense of depravity, of sinfulness. And I'm like, man, like I need to get my life together. You know what I'm saying? This is not the kind of life that I should be living. Like I shouldn't be hurt like this. I shouldn't be trying to fake life. I shouldn't be having to go back to a woman who doesn't love me. I had all my friends and family saying, yo, man, like leave this girl. You know what I'm saying? Like she's no good for you. She's crushing you, And so I'm like, yeah, but I just couldn't find it in me to do it. So finally I had this overwhelming sense of like, pick up the Bible. And surely enough, we had an old dusty Bible in the house somewhere. And I picked it up. I just started reading. And I did it for several weeks, and I'm reading. And I just had this overwhelming sense of wanting to get closer to God. And I said, I have a feeling pain is going to come. And I have a feeling that it's going to come really hard. And surely enough, as I was reading my Bible, right? And trying to get into God and trying to learn more about him and trying to be a Christian, if you will, and basically seeking God in almost throwing myself at his mercy, because this is literally what I was telling God. I'm like, Lord, like, I don't know you. I want to know you, and I want to get to know you enough so that when the pain comes, which I know is going to come, that you can be with me and you can help me through this. That's exactly my mentality. And as I began to search the Bible, I'm like, I had something in me that was driving me to want to get close to the Lord. And so surely enough, fast forward several weeks later or a month or so, that's when I found that out. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, I remember going back home and I was crushed, I was devastated, and I said, you know, I need to change this. You know what I'm saying? I need to stop doing this. And so here's what ended up happening. Surely enough, it was her boss that she was cheating on me with. And, you know, she had obviously went out to go see the guy several times, and the guy was way, way, way older than she was and way older than me and stuff. And I'm like, wow, you know, and listen, I'll be honest with you, like one of the crushing blows, and this is one of the things that I absolutely hate. And I'm sorry, listen, I'm a Christian, I love the Lord and stuff like that now, and I still have this mentality. Maybe I shouldn't. But I guess the way I see it is like, it kind of irks me, it bothers me that to some degree, if someone is going to cheat on you, hey, cheat on me with somebody that's good or somebody that's better or somebody that looks 1,000 times better than I do. But like seriously, like how in the world are you going to cheat on me with a guy that's like 7,685 pounds, who's a loser, who's got a pot belly, who smokes who smokes cigarettes, and like, in other words, why do you down cheat on me? You know what I'm saying? Like it makes me like look like, dang, was I really that bad? You know what I'm saying? These, you know, like, you know, so that was one of the things that, again, I'm not saying that like we should be doing this as Christian. I know that that's a bad mentality to have, that you think that you're better looking than this other person. But I'm just saying, like, you know, the fact that she cheated on me with her boss, who was like so much older than her and who did not fit at all the description of what I thought she would like as a man. I'm like, really? Like, you cheated on me with this guy? You know, and it was almost like it was nothing compared to what her taste was like. And I'm like, wow, that is so like, so anyways, that was what happened. And so it turns out that there was a transition. There was a period of about, I don't know. And let me say this, time-wise, remember I said at the beginning that this was about the middle of 2004? This was about April, January, February, March, April, about May or June, something like that it all started. You know, July, August, around there. And it turns out that because I was already reading the Bible, right? By the time August, let me see, July, August, September, October. By the time September and October came through, I think I was still living with her, but I had basically, again, I don't remember, don't take my word for this, but it was something like either I was still with her but crushed, or we were trying to reconcile, but in my mind I was like, no, I need to get out of here, you know? So sure enough, as I got closer and closer to the Lord, it turns out that one day what I ended up doing was I remember packing up my bags, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm out of here. So I packed up my bags. Maybe it was that same week. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. But all I know is that I was packing my bags, and here's the crazy part. As I'm packing my bags, I left everything behind. I left it all to her. I said, you know what? You can have everything in the apartment. Take it all. It's all yours. I don't care. All I need is my clothing, my shoes, and I'm good to go. That's all I need. Give me my clothes and I'm out of here. And sure enough, as I was packing everything in garbage bags, my clothing and stuff like that, because I had a lot of clothes, I'm packing them in bags. This is the crazy part. I remember this clearly. She was sitting, she was in the bed, she was on the bed, sitting on the bed, and she was so cold. She was so calloused. She was like just sitting there watching me pack my stuff and ready to leave. And I'm like, she's not even stopping me. She's not even like, she's just cold. Like in her mind, she's like, yeah, get the heck out of here. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready to move on without you. And I tell you, that was so crushing to me, because I'm like, wow, like I've devoted, like I was faithful to her, you know. I've forgiven her for faults in the past, and she's still the same person. And so I remember packing up my stuff. I remember putting it into the vehicle, and I remember basically like, you know, chuck deuce, I'm out of here. You know what I'm saying? And here's what ended up happening. Right before I ended up leaving, a day or 2 days before I ended up leaving, I remember I did this. This is part of my testimony. I had floppy disks, like floppy, like at that time those little floppy disks, and you know, they had pornography and stuff in it and stuff, and I remember I felt so bad about that you know, I had like, and she knew about it, you know what I'm saying? So I wasn't trying to keep it from her and stuff like that, but I had floppy disks that had pornography in it, and I felt bad about it, not because of her, but because of the Lord. I'm like, man, I can't believe I've treated the Lord like this, and God has been good to me and stuff. And so what I ended up doing is I felt so bad of having that. I remember getting on my knees and crying out to the Lord, like, please help me, Lord, save me. Like, please save me from this situation. And I remember ripping all of the floppy disks. I was cutting them, I was tearing them up, and I'm telling the Lord literally, like, I give up. I throw myself into your mercy, like, rescue me out of this, please. I know this. What lies from here on is going to be sheer darkness and pain. I already know that. Because I don't even know how to live without this girl. I don't know how to. I don't know how to live on my own right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm already at that point 27 years old. I have no clue how I'm going to function. I don't know where to go. I have no clue where I'm going to go. I have 0 places to go. I'm just going to stay in my vehicle. So I'm throwing myself at the mercy of God. And surely enough, I get in my vehicle. I put all my stuff in the vehicle. And I put the vehicle on drive and I leave. And watch this. The first place I hit was a church. I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put the car in drive, and the first church I bump into, I'm gonna go in there and stay there. And as I'm driving, watch this. As I'm driving, I land on this one church, and there was nobody in there. It was like empty. That church was empty that day, because it was daytime. It was like 12 o'clock in the daytime, and that church was empty, obviously, in the daytime. And then it was like a Wednesday or something like that. So I remember I pulled up to the church, into the parking lot, and I was so crushed. I was so broken. I was so tired. I mean, I was tired. I had been weeping and crying, and I was like, I had lost so much weight. I mean, I had gotten down from like 138, 139 or whatever like that to like 127. I had lost like 12 pounds. I was suffering. I was in very bad conditions. So what happened was I got on the car, you know, and when I found this church, I pulled into the church parking lot, and I remember this. I cried myself to sleep in that vehicle. I literally cried myself to sleep inside the vehicle. And I remember that I woke up like 3 hours later. It was like 3 o'clock by the time I woke up, and I was, man, like, I remember this, like, what now? What do I do now? I'm in my vehicle. I have no place to go, you know? And then I started saying to myself, I'm like, man, like, so I don't remember what I did. I think I went to go live with my mom or whatever. I moved in with my mom, who was living with some other person, like jammed and crammed or whatever like that. So there's a sense in which I really didn't fit in there, but I didn't have anywhere to go. But I don't remember what happened. But all I remember was that Sunday, I went to that church's service. I decided that I was going to go to that church's service, and I did that. I went to the service that Sunday, and immediately the first day I went to the service, some kid, like a young kid, went up to me, and he introduced himself to me. He said, hey, you know, my name is Mark, and you know, how you doing? You know, I've never seen you here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Danny and stuff, and you know, nice to meet you and stuff. And this was the first Christian, if you will, right? The first Christian solid that I met, right, as a Christian, because at that point, like I said, I had already been impacted by the Lord. Like, the Lord has already been working in me, and I already had a massive desire to seek God already, you know. So I'm like, which I didn't have before. And so now I want to seek the Lord. I want to seek the things of God. So when I went to that church, he was the first one to introduce himself to me, which here's the crazy part. That guy, Mark, this was in 2004, at the ending of 2004. By the way, this was in around October. Around October, I remember this. And that guy in late 2004, Mark, who introduced himself to me, became my best friend. To this day, 16 years later, 15 years later, give or take, he's still my best friend, and he's still very much in my life. And it goes to show you, like, God put that man in my life, and he dramatically changed my life. What he did was, watch this man did not know me. This kid did not know me. He was a single child, living with his parents, extremely responsible kid. I think at that time he was maybe 20, 19, 20, 21 maybe. I think I'm like 5 years older than him, so maybe 22. He was about 22 or something like that. Very responsible kid, raised in a very good home, Christian home. And so it turns out that his family and him were living in Port St. Lucie. You know, they had their own house. You know, and this kid does not know me. introduced himself to me, and said, hey, and I told him my situation. I'm like, yo, and he literally, I'm not lying, he literally invited me over to his house, and his mom and his father took me in. These people took me in to live with them without even knowing me. Awesome family. God took me out of nowhere, out of not going in, not knowing where to go, and he put me in this family that I have no idea. And I saw the gospel. I saw a Christian family, and I yearned. Let me tell you something. In light of those 7 years, give or take, of that relationship that I had that was toxic, that was pure profane and pure unfaithful and pure pain, all that stuff, like to see God taking me out of that and putting me in a situation where I'm like, what kind of family is this? I've never experienced this kind of family. I mean, they loved each other. And I'm like, wow, it's such a huge difference. And I'm like, yo, I want that. That's what I want in my life. And so I'm going to go ahead and end the video here for the sake of time. But what happens next is I'm just going to do one more video. I wanted to end it with this video, but I want to do one more just so that you guys can know what happened, because I kind of left you guys hanging as far as what happened to my ex-girlfriend and what happened to her and her new, her new endeavor with this other guy, and what happened to me when I was living with this guy. So I'm going to leave that as a cliffhanger. But at the same time, what I want to say is this, like, that was a huge time of crisis in my life, because let me say this, never in my history, in those 27 years, ever, and I've gone through tons of pains and heartaches, I've never experienced anything like that. That was the worst time of my life. And even to this day now, fast forward, I still haven't experienced anything as painful as that. So all that to say that was an extreme crisis in my life of just sheer pain, which, by the way, again, this is why I say that I understand why people go through relationship and they suffer, and how painful it is to see another person cheat on another person, and so it's not an easy thing. It's painful. However, like I learned that God was using that to get me out of that, so he can do something new in my life, and he did rescue me out of that. And to me, I look back at that and I'm like, oh my goodness, like God was really with me. He really was with me. And so maybe I'll end the video by saying this, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. And I hope that if maybe you are experiencing this in any situation as far as, infidelity and stuff like that, and luckily I was never really married and stuff like that. I was never married. But like, if you're experiencing anything like this, like that's not God's will, that there be infidelity in a relationship like that, and I think that it's best for us to, to try to seek ways in which we can be very careful how we treat our spouses, right? And if you have tendencies to infidelity, maybe it's better for you not to, to marry or to get into a relationship. So I mean, I know we're not all perfect, we all make mistakes and stuff like that. That's understandable, but at the same time, it's like it hurts. It hurts to see infidelities and stuff like that and all that. But God is good. God is able to rescue us out of that stuff. And anyways, I'll leave you guys with that cliffhanger. Hopefully you guys can learn something from this. And in whatever spectrum you are, whether it's you're the one who's cheating on somebody, or whether you're the one who's been cheated on, God is always good, and God is willing and ready to rescue us from that, And so that's my prayer for you guys, that if you're experiencing any pain, that we can run to Him, and that He also would stoop down to our level and to comfort us in our time of need. It really is sad to see how we humans can do these kind of things to one another. And keep in mind, I said to one another, because even though I never cheated on her, it doesn't mean that I've never been unfaithful as far as looking at pornography, or as far as like trying to flirt with other girls, or as far as falling in those areas too, and to some degree. So I'm just saying, like, we all need grace. We all need to forgive one another, and Anyways, let me stop right here for the sake of time. God bless you. May He give you peace. May His face shine upon you. And of course, may He be gracious to you. And I hope that this would be a time for you to reflect on what I am saying. And maybe if you don't have a relationship with God, listen, the tough times are going to come. They are. And I'm not saying flee to God so that you can escape these times. I'm just saying, like, God is the God of all comforts, as the Bible teaches us. He is the God of all comforts, and He comforts us so that we may be a comfort to those who are suffering. So I hope this is a comfort for some of you guys as well. So anyways, I love you guys. Thank you for watching. God bless. I'm about to go to work in a little bit. Bye.